Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Good afternoon. My name is Bonnie Gonzalez, and yes, I am your doula for grief. Welcome to our second time together, and it's just going to be fantastic. We have a wonderful guest that's going to really delve into something that's very vital and very important to grief. But before we move into that part of the show, I just want to remind you of my purpose for being here. And it's like, what is a doula? A doula is someone that walks with you, sits with you, supports you, and nurtures you through a difficult time in your life. Be it a time of course, childbirth, that is a childbirth doula. There are death doulas that support one as they make their transition. And there's also, just recently I saw, there's even a divorce doula. So anytime you need that extra support, that extra nurturing and caring and person that really listens deeply and able to tune into your needs, that is what a doula does. So I am your doula for grief, here to walk with you, here to hold the light as you navigate this path of grief. And the reason I really want to be here is so that we start to talk about grief, that we take the stigma away from grief. Grief is not something that is discussed in our everyday society. I feel like we have brought light to so many things that would not have been talked about in the past. For instance, our sexual preferences, gender fluidity, erectile dysfunctions, now shining a really bright light on suicide. So my goal is to shine that light on grief, because grief is a very transformative process. And grief is just caused by loss. And there's a myriad of losses that we suffer in our lives. So there's just no reason to continue to suffer in silence and to suffer alone. Let's bring grief out. Let's return it to its rightful place into our lives. So with that said, today, I want to talk about how unresolved grief can really can lead to disease, can cause physical illnesses. And I have a special guest today that's going to speak on this subject. And her name is Judith Roberts, and she's a soft and hard skills trainer, instructional designer, and technical writer, and currently working part-time in her home in Oakland. She's also a licensed practitioner with the Centers for Spiritual Living, a sound healer, massage therapist, and certified hypnotherapist. So I'd like to welcome my guest to the show today. And not only Judith has a whole laundry list of accomplishments. He's also my friend. That should go at the top. So thank you, Judith, for for agreeing to share your story on how unresolved grief can get held in our bodies.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for that lovely introduction. When I listened to your show last week, your first show, and I heard you mention several times about how grief and emotion can become stuck in the body, I just contacted you about sharing this story because it's a dramatic story, my personal story of grief becoming stuck in the body and then actually the release of the grief. So I'd like to start with saying that when I was about 40 years old, I was diagnosed with a pituitary tumor in the center of my brain. And I want to share with you the lead up to that diagnosis, actually what happened. It's a windy story, but if you stay with me, I think you'll find this really informative. So for 15 years or so, I didn't menstruate or ovulate. And I saw many gynecologists over those 15 years, and they had a term for this, which was amenorrhea, but they could not identify a cause. When I saw this next doctor at age 40, he was a double specialist, the gynecology and endocrinology. And he said, let's test your prolactin level. Prolactin is a hormone. And so we did that, and the prolactin level was elevated. And then he said, okay, let's do an MRI. He did an MRI of my brain, and sure enough, there was a white spot in the middle of my brain, which was the tumor, a pituitary tumor. Pituitary regulates the hormones in the body. So he put me on meds that would suppress the growth of the tumor. He said it did not need to be operated on, would never need to be operated on, but meds would suppress it. So I went on the meds. My menstrual cycles resumed on an artificial cycle, a 21-day cycle, where my cycle had been 28 days long ago before they stopped. And every 6 months, he took me off of meds for a while, tested the prolactin level again, and every time he took me off, it elevated. So he put me back on because it meant the tumor was continuing to grow without the med. So I had to go back on, and this went on for 4 years. Well, around the end of those 4 years, I went to a festival in India with a teacher of mine, Prem Rawat, who I had met when I was 19, and I'd become an instructor for him. I'd been very involved with his work and lived in his ashrams for a while, for 9 years. Anyway, this festival was attended by 100,000 people, and I was immersed in a field of love. That's what I remember from it. I took away from it being immersed in a field of love. I came home and I had changed. I had transformed. And I became unwilling to accept the prognosis of lifetime medication. And I called my doctor and I said, I'm going off of meds. I'm going to do my own healing process. And he said, okay, you can go off for a month. And I had no idea what I would do. But there's a saying by Pablo Coelho, which says the universe conspires to support the dreamer. And what happened was the universe conspired to support me when I took that stand. In 2 weeks, I met a healer who was both a Reiki healer and a psychic healer. I had a session with her, and while I was on her table, she received a vision of me as a child, and in her vision, I was trapped. I'm not going to go into the details. I didn't particularly relate to the vision. She counseled me about it, and she said, In the next couple weeks, you're going to be releasing a lot. Call me if you need help. Well, in about a week, I was parked in a Walgreens parking lot or a Costco parking lot, some parking lot, just sitting in my car, ready to get out, and a dam burst inside of me. And I went into enormous, enormous grief. I was sobbing and sobbing, and it went on for a long time, and it was deep. It was hard to get to that place.
Yeah.
But I let it out. I just let myself feel it, and I let it out. And then a little later, I called the healer, and she said, she said, "Congratulations, you've released the tumor."
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
had no idea, except what happened was my menstrual cycles returned on their normal schedule, 28-day schedule.
Yeah.
I stayed off of medication for 4 months, and the cycle went normal. I then went back to my doctor, and he tested the prolactin level, and it tested normal for the first time. Then I moved to the Bay Area, and I got another doctor who was the same double specialty, told him this story. And he said, "Oh, that's very interesting, but we should verify that the tumor is gone with an MRI."
Yes.
So we did an MRI, tumor was gone.
Mm.
And he continued to test me every 6 months, my prolactin level, and it tested normal. And
Mm.
after a few years, he said, "No need to continue testing." So
Mm.
so it's a quite dramatic story. So I have a picture of my brain with the tumor and without the tumor.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, I didn't expect that this was gonna be so emotional.
Oh, just take a
So
minute. Just take a minute. Yeah, just take a minute and just
Mm,
just settle
yeah.
yourself. Just take a minute.
So thank you, Bonnie. So my understanding of what happened, there's two things here that I want to share about my understanding of what happened. The first is that when I was at that festival in India, my vibration raised, my frequency level raised up. We all have a frequency, and my frequency raised up, and that frequency was incompatible with the frequency of the tumor. That's what I believed happened. And when I came home, I wasn't willing to accept the prognosis of lifetime medication.
Right.
And so the universe conspired to support the dreamer. The other thing is that I never really identified where all that grief came from.
That
Um,
was my
there are
question.
a couple of things that it might have because she saw me, in her vision, I was a child. And I know when I was 8, my father left home. He came back in 6 months, I believe, and reunited with the family. But I remember that was very traumatic for me when he left home. The other thing was I lost my mother at age 25. And that's around the time when menstruation stopped. So both of those incidents probably contributed to deep grief that I never processed,
Mm.
grief that got stuck in my body. Um, and 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 that I didn't know. I didn't know that I hadn't, expressed all that grief. Uh,
Right.
but there's one other aspect to the story that's interesting. When I moved to Oakland, I went to a teaching clinic for acupuncture, and I told the practitioner who was working with me, who was Chinese and had been doing acupuncture for 30 years. I told her my story, and she said, "This doesn't surprise me." She said, "In Mandarin, we have a word for tumor, which translates as congealed emotion."
Mm. Yes.
She
Yes.
called in her students and
Mm.
shared my story with them. And one of them just simply couldn't accept this. He just couldn't believe it. It's hard sometimes for the medical profession to accept this. My 2 doctors showed no curiosity about it. Um, a third doctor I talked to who headed the Center for Integrative Medicine at Sutter, he believed my story, but he said it would just blow the minds of doctors because there's not a concept of spiritual, emotional, physical integration,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that all of the levels are connected. But I think this story is a real demonstration that unexpressed grief got stuck in my body, caused an illness, caused a tumor. When I
Mhm.
released the grief, I released the tumor. The healer was correct. The
Mhm.
healer was correct. She said, "Congratulations, you've released the tumor."
Right.
And so that's my story. And thank you for allowing me to share it.
Well, more importantly, Judith, it's like, how does that feel for you to share it? You talked about a few minutes ago how in Chinese medicine there's a word for emotions. I mean, there's a word that identifies a disease in the body, that it's recognized that there's a disease in the body caused by emotion. Where in our Western tradition, we don't have that. But I think science is now starting to shine a light on that as well, as to say what emotional distress is causing in our bodies. And what I wanted to ask, the reason I'm saying that, when she said that in the acupressure session, did that really resonate? How did you feel when they said that? What was there anything that you can take away from that moment of hearing it, of
Oh,
actually hearing
yeah, it was very validating
it? Mm-hmm.
for her to say that. I did recently follow up with a friend who's from Taiwan who's fluent in Mandarin, and I asked him about it. I said, "Do you have a word for tumor that translates as congealed emotion?" And he couldn't think of one. But
Mm-hmm.
it might have been an esoteric, or it just might not be in the common parlance, the common vocabulary, but
Mm-hmm.
she knew about it. She knew about it and shared it with me, and I thought that was really profound.
Mm, mm. And I just wanted to back up when you said your mother died when you were around 25.
Mhm.
Do you remember going through the grief process, or what was your grieving process like when your mother died? What was it for you? Do you remember?
I remember grieving before she died and as she was dying, but I don't remember grieving after she died.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't remember, I don't remember deep grief
Mhm.
after
Mhm.
she died.
Right.
Yeah.
And is are you in curiosity around that at all, or you're at peace with that process?
I'm at peace with it. I'm
Yeah.
at peace with it. And
Yeah.
the deep grief, or what I call the enormous grief that I did release, um, it may have been from these 2 incidents in my life. It may have been accumulated. There may have been other things, or perhaps we don't know for sure, but perhaps I brought it in with me.
Oh, from other lifetimes.
Yeah.
Yes. Other yes.
If
Other
that's true,
lost.
that's why I said we don't know for sure, but
Right.
if that's true, maybe I brought it in with me and it was unresolved from some other time.
Mhm. And I did want to make a point that I have been um, talking with people that are really surprised that, say, their mother or father or someone died like 20, 25 years ago, and they feel like they never had an opportunity to process that.
Mhm.
And now that it's coming up, and now they're like surprised because they're saying, that was so long ago that should have been resolved. It should no longer be an issue. But I want to say, and even in your case, that we never know when it's really going to come up, if it's going to come out as this tumor of congealed emotions that came out how many years later?
15.
Yeah.
Well, 15
No, it was
since,
longer.
15 since the onset of the symptoms.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
it could have been earlier that the grief actually, got stuck in my body.
Right. I do want to stop and acknowledge some of our viewers and listeners out there. Laura is, she says, what a wonderful healing you initiated, that healing. Um, and there was one other comment that you had about going to India with Prem in the
Yeah.
90s. Laura was also there. Maybe you guys were there together. You never know. And then Wayne is here with us.
What's Laura's last name? I wonder if I know her.
Oh, Laura Topper. She's in the
Oh,
UK.
no, I
She's,
don't know Laura. Okay. Yeah.
I did want to ask Judith. It sounds as if you're pretty open-minded to different techniques of healing or philosophies of healing. Is there anything you'd like to share with people around that to use in the grief process? Because I say that grief definitely is to be shared. There is something about grieving, you cannot do it alone. You really cannot do it alone. Is there anything that you would like to share about any of the modalities that you use for healing that could be used for people in grief?
Well, I think with sound healing, just sound is such a healing modality and technique. And I think to go to whatever sound and music or sounds in nature that a person is drawn to can be really healing. And I'm thinking more in terms of soothing, calming. Um, I just think, sound is a very powerful methodology.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing you just mentioned is to seek out the company of family and friends, and don't grieve alone. Don't
Mm-hmm.
grieve alone. Yeah.
Right,
Community is so important.
right. Community is vital. Is vital. I was just going to ask. When you were doing the massage therapy, the
Mhm.
massage therapist that said you may need her
Mhm.
help, what prompted you to go to that?
Oh, it was so interesting, Bonnie. It was so interesting. I was doing massage on the side. I had a regular job, but I was supplementing my income and doing massage on the side because I liked doing it. And I put an ad in a local paper um, advertising my services. And this was, before the internet was so prevalent. So
Right.
did a paper ad, and a lady called me up. This lady called me up and she said,
Mhm.
new in town. I'm new in town. I saw your ad. I'm a I'm a Reiki practitioner and a psychic healer, and you're a massage therapist. I wondered if you would like to exchange sessions. And if I like your work, I'll refer people to you, and if you like my work, you refer people to me.
I
Now
see.
I had taken my stand for my own health 2 weeks earlier, not knowing, and told my doctor I'm going to do my own healing process, having no idea what I would do.
Mhm.
So when she contacted me, I thought, this is a no-brainer.
Uh-huh.
So I said yes, and she said, "Would you?" And I think she was also a masseuse. And she said,
Mhm.
"Would you like a massage or would you like a healing? Like a
I
psychic
see.
and Reiki healing?" I said, I'd like a psychic and Reiki healing
Yes,
because,
yes.
of course, because that's what I was standing for. And
Mhm.
so that's how we met, and we did our sessions, and just with that one session, all of this transpired.
Wow. Wow.
So that's where the universe conspired to support the dreamer. It's like, okay, we hear you. We hear
Yeah.
you. Here,
Yes.
try
Judith.
this.
And should I ask, how's your health now? How's your health now? No further residual from that tumor?
Oh, no, that was cleared. That was
Right.
completely cleared. And when that doctor many years ago said no need to come again and check prolactin level, I think maybe once or twice in recent years, maybe as part of a regular panel, they included prolactin and it was normal. No, it's never, what's the word when it comes back? It's
Yeah.
never,
A reoccurrence, yeah.
there's never been a reoccurrence. So
Yeah.
it was a total and complete healing.
Mm-hmm. I'm just in awe of that. Just
What
in
what
awe
a
of
gift.
that.
What a gift. It
Yeah.
was really a gift. And uh I did know somebody, I was in a class with somebody with Angeles Arian who had a pituitary tumor, and he was about to have brain surgery to have it removed.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my story, and he didn't take it in. He didn't take in that possibility, and maybe for him it wasn't a possibility. I don't know, but I think it's important for all of our viewers and listeners to know that, and doctors know this. We all hear about spontaneous remissions, that natural healing is possible.
Yes, yes. I just wanted to say I see that Laura Topper has a comment there that Judith's aura is shining. And
Oh,
it definitely is. I can see that brightness all around you, and especially when it's back a little bit and we can see the sunset that it comes through. Um, but I did want to say you were saying that you shared your story with a gentleman who had a tumor and was having surgery. I think we just we meet people, we share our story, but meeting people where they are.
yes, exactly.
Sometimes that's
Yeah.
out of their ability to even embrace that,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
there's no
very-
judgment. It's
it's
important
no
to have no judgment.
it's just another
Yeah.
option that you can use.
Yeah, because everybody's path is unique. And I don't know the full story of his diagnosis. It
Right.
may not have been the same as mine, but yeah,
Right.
we share what we can and we let it go.
And I was going to say there is that whole truth to grief being stuck in the body or being held in the body, or unresolved grief can definitely cause illness. And I wanted to say the proof is even with Louise Hay. You know how so many people are devotees of Louise Hay and her teachings and her workshops and her teachings, and her the title of her books are "You Can Heal Your Life." You can heal your life. So Judith, I think that's a testimony to that part of self-healing,
Mhm.
but it takes that awareness and knowing what you need, just taking an awareness, being willing to try different modalities.
Mhm.
um, with the acupuncture, you did the acupuncture and the massage. And wasn't the biggest revelation was when you were in India and being surrounded by love?
Well, I think that, yeah,
Hardest.
yes. I think that field of love I was in made this huge difference. I transformed in that field of love. That's what I believe happened.
Yes. And from what I hear, that it caused you to say, I'm not going to accept that I have this chronic illness to live with. That
I'm not
it's,
the stand I took was I don't accept the prognosis of lifetime medication.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I became unwilling to accept that.
yes, yes. So thank you, Judith. I'm
You're
so glad
welcome.
that you're healthy and whole today and able to be here on the show with us. And I hear some sweet music that's saying it's time to let you go. I thank my beloved friend Judith. And
Thank
we will, next week we will be Yes, creativity born from grief. Creativity born from grief. Love
Wow.
every one of you, and just thank you for being here with us today on New Thought Media Network. Bonnie Gonzalez for Doula for Grief. Thank you, Judith.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for asking me on as your guest. It's an
New Thought Radio, music from all your favorite New Thought artists. From Jamie Lula, Karen Drucker, Gary Lynn Floyd, Ricky Byers, Daniel Nahmod, Eddie Watkins Jr., and many, many more. 24/7 New Thought Radio. Positively inspiring.